All right, so I wanted to quickly introduce Giuseppe. Over the COVID period, there was a lot of fuss made about people rediscovering sourdough as a hobby and a process and something to occupy their time. Giuseppe came to my attention then as he started up a sourdough group on Facebook.
Yeah.
So that's how we hooked up. And since then, I've been following Giuseppe's channel and watching how he's progressed his sourdough passion. So I thought, given the nature of the conference about all things fermentable, really, why not bring in someone to talk about sourdough?
Absolutely.
So on that note, Giuseppe, hand it over to you, buddy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm Giuseppe Nasti. I was born in Italy in 1986, and so a short while back. And my family comes from the south, so where food is everything. And even though I was born in the north, I've been culturally raised as a Napolitan. So pizza, pasta, big Sunday meals, and a lot of bread on the table at every meal. Like bread was on the table from breakfast to dinner. There wasn't a rule. That was the meal. And we all know, you probably know because you are beer lovers, the sourdough actually is actually thought to be born during the Egyptian era, thanks to the beer fermenting. So the legend, studies and scientists think that actually the bacteria living in the beer have slowly moved into a porridge made of oil at that time, fermented that, and bread was born. That's what they say. But recently in a place in Turkey, I can't remember exactly the name, it's been discovered a piece of focaccia that was 14,000 years old. So they can't say if it was leavened, so fermented or not, but they say that probably some kind of porridge or flatbread was already made at that time. So we're talking a long time back. So my passion for sourdough starts not only my family, because my grandfather was a baker, but I never met him. I carry his name, Giuseppe, so I think I have his own blood. So I have this passion, this natural gift of being able to bake and to share my passion for it, my love. I've been a chef for over 20 years, and I feel very grateful that I'm able to understand baking or sourdough baking, fermentation from different perspectives, not just the straight mix flour and water, put yeast and ferment. It's actually something that I study, that I research, I want to know. I select my own grains, I mill my own grains, and the chef side of my career gives me the creativity to change the nuances of the seeds. Like I toast my own rye, I ferment the rye and then I toast it, I change the colors, I change the mixes, I use flowers, dried spices, everything can be used to make your own version of sourdough. Before I go forward, if you have any questions, you can interrupt anytime, doesn't matter, it will be flowing. The class will work like I would like to show you how I make my sourdough, but time frame is very short, so we're gonna bake one straight away. So while that one bake, we go through the steps of shaping the sourdough, and then we're gonna mix the sourdough. So it's backwards, and this will give us the opportunity to have some bread at the end. Yes, going back to my passion for sourdough, I'm 19 years old. I went in a Michelin star restaurant in Rome, following my dream to become one of the best chefs in the world. And I saw this baby on the bench. The chef, Giuseppe as well, was calling it the baby. Have you feed the baby today? Have you feed the baby today? So we had this task every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, if we had a breakfast shift, to take out the baby from the fridge, put it in a nice warm spot, and for him at 9 o'clock to be ready to be fed. Let me get the bread that's in the fridge right now, and the fridge actually helps stabilize the skin of the bread. I don't cover the bread, it goes in a proving basket, straight in the fridge, uncovered, and now we're gonna bake it. We have a wonderful oven here. A rationale, I don't know if you're familiar with conventional ovens. So that one there has got the capacity of using steam, which is very important for sourdough baking. Some home bakers have the ability to use baking vessels like Dutch ovens, or you can make your own, a deep tray with some foil on top, aluminium foil, or if you have professional ovens like that, you can use a lot of steam and be able to keep the bread nice and moist. I'll be back. So here's the sourdough loaf. I shaped this one this morning the first time, and about 45 minutes before as well, because I saw it was a little too relaxed, because it didn't spend much time in the fridge. So of course with experience you'll be able to, if you will start baking very often, you'll be able to understand bread in different ways, especially sourdough. And this one is fermented from last night, 11 o'clock when I arrived in Melbourne, 11 p.m. And made the dough, let it prove overnight on the bench in about 20 degrees environment, so bacteria have multiplied and created gas. As in the beer. So we have 2 bacteria into our sourdough culture that you can pass around. The smell. Thank you so much. I want to break it down a bit so you can smell it. So you can pass it around, you smell. So a sourdough culture is an ecosystem made basically of 2 main components. Saccharomyces, which is the fungus, the fungi, that lives and digests the sugars, in this case carbohydrates, and produces carbon dioxide. And we have the lactic acid bacteria on the other side. These 2 elements work in symbiosis together to create an environment that's acidic for the fungi to live and thrive, and the fungi produces the sugar, eats the sugars that are contained into the flour to produce the gas. So I like to use a mix of wheat flour and rice to dust my bread for 2 reasons. The rice flour actually keeps it nice and crunchy, and the wheat gives the nice color. 50-50? Yes, roughly 50-50. So as you can see, this one has a beautiful texture, it's beautiful gas. Stays nice in there, doesn't move. I am very generous with the flour, and this is the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful tools that the barber shops have ever given to bakers. There's no better tool than this one to slash your bread. And one of the things that we all struggle at the beginning is exactly scoring your bread or cutting deep. So you don't need to be afraid. You can go deep, 0.5 centimeter into your crust, and this way able to open the bread. So why do we cut? We cut the bread for one main reason, to be able to give a selected point for the bread to grow, to open, to explode. So now I'm going to show you my baking vessel that I created. This will keep extra steam into the tray. It won't be necessary in our rationale, but because I haven't used it for 3 years, I don't want to fail, so I go straight for something that will work.
Is there any water in it?
No. You can add it, but because the oven can produce up to 100% of steam,
So
I don't need it.
With something
Yes, you can. If you have a vessel that's wide enough, that the water won't melt or touch the bread, you can use that.
A Dutch oven with maybe...
Perfect. You don't even need water. There's enough water into your bread that will be released during evaporation during the bake. This loaf will roughly bake in about 50 minutes, 45 minutes. It's a 900 grams loaf, so it's pretty sizable.
What temperature have you got the oven?
230.
All the way through, 45.
Depends, we'll see. So these ovens, so if you're at home, let's say you have a gas oven, very important to understand, it can go usually 230, 250. What I suggest, if you use a baking vessel, crank it up to the top and leave it there, forget about it. If you have an electric oven, because the heat is much drier than the gas that produces moisture by burning, you need to be a bit lower. Like maybe start at 220 and see. If it gets too much colder straight away, drop it straight to 180. It's very subtle, very connected to the efficiency of your oven.
So just a regular gas oven, you put a small container of liquid in the pot and
Yes, yes. Well, my suggestion is always to find, if you can, use some aluminium foil. Like grab aluminium foil and wrap the tray with aluminium foil. So make it nice and loose. For example, this is your loaf onto a tray, and you try and wrap it around. Don't leave any gap. Trying to trap as much steam as the bread loaf will release to keep the crust nice and warm. Because what happens when the beginners try and bake at home, they put it straight on a tray, and because the heat is so dry, the crust dries out straight away, and it pops on the weakest point of the loaf, which is usually the bottom. Because we always say to put the seam down, so that's the weakest point. And when that happens, it's also only because the crust has dried out too much and it doesn't have room to explode anymore. It's sealed. Because what happens at 165 degrees, sugar caramelizes from 155 to 165. Of course, the coloration will change. The higher the temperature, the darker the color. But let's go straight to a recipe. I've got some wonderful South Australian flour here from Flinders Ranges. It's a monoculture. The seed species, it's Katana. And it's not Australian native, it's been imported. I don't know where exactly, but I know it's not Australian native. In this bowl I have 400 grams of flour.
What's the protein?
Between 12 and 14, depending on the season and the water. Yes, sir.
If you've got a bunch of people who geek out on science, can you explain what you were talking about earlier?
Oh yeah, so the
Strength versus protein.
absolutely. So what I was saying to Andy before was that many people are trying to achieve very high hydrated sourdoughs. They have that aim, that challenge to go from 70 to 90%, but unfortunately, something that isn't being told or something that doesn't get explained very well is that the flour properties of absorption are different. So it's not only related to the strength of the amount of protein, but it's also, for example, I'll give you a philosophical point of view. If the grain grows in a very dry place, it will have a much higher absorption power. If the grain grows in a very wet place, because it's already full of water, it will absorb less water. It's very simple. See, we will go to his natural state at the beginning. That's exactly what he wants to do. Even though it's flour, this one to become again what he was at the beginning. So, what happens if you have a flour, for example, that has a 9% protein, and you put only 50% water, it could definitely look like a 90% hydrated sourdough. So hydration is something that you will increase and you'll understand, but it's related to the strength of your flour. The stronger the flour, the more power absorption you will have. So it's related to that. And this miller also doesn't water his crops. If it rains, it's got more crop, more abundant. If it doesn't rain, it's got less abundant crops. So, and also this changes the amount of gluten that's into the grains. The wetter the season, the weaker the flour. The drier the season, the stronger the flour. So that's very important. So what I like to do, I mix the flour to make sure there's no lumps. I put my salt. For 400 grams of flour, I put 8 grams of salt, which is usually 2%. And then I have 450 grams of water. I probably won't use it all, because this one will equal to 105%. And I'm going to use 300 ml. And I'm going to put my starter straight away. I don't follow any rule that says that you need to put a salt later, or you need to put a starter later, or autolyzer first, because I don't believe that really helps the way I make my bread. So my reason for not following those rules is because I want to make sure that my dough is mixed evenly. That's one struggle, especially when you do autolyzers. If you don't use a very wet starter, it's very difficult to incorporate the starter. It's very difficult to have an open crumb, or it's very difficult to have an even crumb. Sometimes you find spots of flour that are under fermented and spots of dough that are over fermented because of that reason. And there is a rule in baking that says don't put the salt into your bread straight away, because it will kill the yeast, and that's true. but you need to leave the yeast in contact with salt for about an hour before it kills it. So once this one is mixed, it actually gives strength to your dough. It actually helps develop the gluten structure much faster. So I use this wonderful pattern.
How much starter is there?
Oh, this one, 10%. So 10%, 40 grams.
That's 10% of the weight of flour.
Yes, exactly. Every calculation in percentages is made by percentages, of course, and related to the flour. So if you have a kilo of flour, use 20% of starter, is 200 grams, 10% of starter is 100 grams. And then if you want 1% or 2% of salt, it will be, of course, related to that, 20 grams or 10 grams. One thing that I want to explain very nicely is, so when you're trying to understand the percentages of your dough, you need to also put in place the water that's contained in your starter. So what you're going to do basically, it's divide the starter weight by half and add it to the flour and water content that you have. That's why I put 400 grams and not 500 grams. Usually that's the recipe that you will do, and then you will relate that to the percentages that you need. So I can see that this dough requires more water for my liking. You can see it's pretty dry, you can probably see better there. So I'm going to put some more water. And I'm going to use my hand. It's actually, I remember watching my nonna, my grandmother, making dough so easily. With such an ease. And I would ask myself, how can she do it so easily? She's 82 years old, how can she mix it? Where does she find the strength? And then I remembered, it was a wet dough. She just had the patience to wait for the dough to ferment and to develop the gluten structure on its own. So mechanical force and sourdough are not necessary. They're not best friends. They know each other. So this one is well mixed. As you can see, it took me probably 2-3 minutes. And at this point, for example, I would like you to if you ever go home and bake, you can do this one at night. Forget about it until 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. You wake up, this one will have doubled in size, like this one, and it will have a wonderful texture. And now I'm going to show you.
So stretching.
You can, but it's not necessary. I'll show you.
You just leave it in the...
Just leave it in the bowl, put a wet tea towel on top or clean wrap so it doesn't dry, otherwise you will have some spots of dry flour. And if you feel that there are some lumps right now, maybe in about an hour or two, give it another mix. But if you mix it properly in the beginning, you won't have any lump. Yes?
You mentioned earlier using dry in the mix.
You can, absolutely.
If I happen to just have some grain-free,
Malt.
so malted dry,
Yeah,
on hand, and I just happen to grind that into a little, is that fine?
absolutely, absolutely. So the smaller percentages, the less difference your bread will have.
Yep.
Okay, if you go to above 40%,
Yep.
your bread will change completely. One thing, because malt, I don't know if we're talking about baking malt, there are two different malts, diastatic and not diastatic. The diastatic, it's raw malt basically, full of enzymes, not just sugars, complex sugars. Or non-diastatic malt, it's the one that's been colored, that's been toasted. So all the creatures that were living in it before the dehydration of died. And that's usually used in baking only for color and flavor. But the diastatic malt that you probably have for your beers, you can actually put it, and that will damage the bread if you use it in high quantity, because the starter will be super excited. We'll be on drugs, high. That's what we'll have. So this dough I want to show you. I made this one this morning when I woke up about 9 o'clock after my long night and no sleep. And I want to show you one thing, how wet that is. I wanted to show you beautiful bubble fermentation there. And these red marks that you see is because I've used the Himalayan rock salt. So I gave it time. The bread hasn't died. So even though there were lumps of salt that had to dissolve within 5 or 6 hours, they're still there. But what I want to show you is that the bread doesn't stick to the bench. then to show you the gluten structure, for example, right now, I haven't folded it. You can see it breaks. What I'm doing now, I'm tensing the dough, and I'm gonna leave it there. So after 6-5 hours, once that's doubled, you will leave your dough that you slightly will trying to shape at the best of your ability, of course. You will leave it on the bench to slightly dry. This will help you to use less flour, which is not fermented, so it's not good for us. That's why I use mainly rice flour when I coat my loaf to put in the proving basket, because I don't want to use glutinous flour anymore. Because I've tried so much to try and ferment and get rid of most of the gluten into the dough that if I add more now, I'm just working against myself. And I do this one to create the skin that's on top, so my hands won't stick to it and the bench won't stick to it, so I don't use that much flour. But also, this helps create more strength in the dough as well. So I've got plenty of videos on YouTube where I try to show and let people understand that they struggle to remove the bread from the proving basket. It's because they miss this step. They go straight into the flour, and because the dough is not dry, it will absorb the flour. And because you don't use glutinous flour, gluten is glue, will stick to the proving basket as soon as it goes in contact with the water in the dough. So that's one of the main issues that I find on the web. People are asking, how can I actually detach my bread from the proving basket? Usually, this one, you can see, rips very easily. It's very clumsy, it's rough, it's coarse. But as soon as you start moving it around, like in this case, the dough will start smoothing out a bit. And if you let it rest for another 10-15 minutes, it will smooth even more. And that's just because slowly the flour has been able to absorb the water that was in there. And you can also help yourself with some water to help yourself by having the dough easier to move around into the bowl. I want to teach you another technique as well that I haven't taught anywhere else yet. It's called bassinage. I don't know if you ever heard of it. So bassinage is the French word that explains increasing hydration by folding. So basically, if you do that mechanically, what you would have this dough in a big bowl machine, and you will slowly increase the amount of water every 10 minutes by giving it a turn and adding some water. So what we do the same. Measuring, for example, I want to increase my hydration of 10%, 100 grams of water. I put 100 grams of water into a bowl, and then I start tapping my bread, and just do the same job that I did before. And the bread will slowly, with time, absorb all the water. You do that until the water has been absorbed, and you would have increased your bread of 100 grams, 200 grams, depending on how far you want to take it. And that way you will also be able to understand how much can my flour take, how much water can my flour take. So let me go and wash my hands 1 sec, and then we're going to shape that one.
So who's had a crack at making sourdough? Success?
Yeah, mixed.
Mix? Yeah, not consistently. Yeah. I'm the same. I struggle to get regular rises. Sometimes I'll get a good rise, sometimes.
I moved to a Dutch oven, came to work. So,
That's all I think.
Yeah, I've got
No.
with cast irons.
I've got 2 bits. I use a cast iron Lodge saucepan. It's got a lid. I just took it over and use that as a...
So 10 minutes on that. I was telling some of the audience before that if you have, for example, you have my starter now that I took with myself, smuggling it from Italy to Australia 10 years ago. So I dehydrated a little bit, put it in a bag, and hope that the customer wouldn't stop me. can send me back just for 10 grams of starter. That hasn't happened because I'm here today, so I'm a proud Australian citizen with a very Italian strong accent. And I was saying that if you buy, for example, sourdough culture from USA, from California, and you bring it to Australia, as soon as you open that living creature, it will become Adelaide, or Melbourne, or Darwin. Whatever the bacteria are in this area will populate that straight away, and everything that will be there, because it's so short, it's so small compared to the amount that we have right now here, will be overtaken by the new creature. It's like, it's silly to go and spend 100. I've seen starters sold from San Francisco for $150, $250, just because people have the lack of knowledge in that sense. They're ignorant of that fact. And I want to help you. If you think of buying that, don't do it, because as soon as you open it, you lose all the benefits of the Franciscan Caesarean Saccharomyces, and it's not necessary. So as soon as you have it here, you create your own environment here. And sourdough culture can be born in 2 days. Literally, so quickly and fast and easy. I say, the dirtier the flour, the faster will be your fermentation, because there will be more bacteria, more enzymes, and all the creatures that need to feed on that flour to create carbon dioxide. So when I started sourdough culture making from 2 books, one was the Tartine Bakery from San Francisco, and the other one was the School of Sourdough from UK, Vanessa Kimball. She has done a lot of study with scientists about gut microbiome, and that's what I've learned, how to add into my starter different ingredients to benefit my microbiome, such as rose petals, fennel seeds, star anise, different grains that could be quinoa, barley, rye. If you wanna heal yourself, you can do it also through bread. That's a wonderful thing. You can put 20 elements in your starter, blend it, mix it together, and that will feed your bread. So even if it's small amounts, you're actually changing your microbiome, and that's a wonderful thing to learn. And what she says in the book is that we're not only using bacteria that were in the flour when we produce a new starter, but bacteria that comes from the soil, that moves onto the plant, and then from the plant goes into the seeds, and then the machine rips the plant, puts it into a silos, and then there's more bacteria that will populate and still on it. So there's such a journey before we actually have this. And that's why I like to support locals, like I do with Flinders Rangers. I'm trying to work with him to develop my own blend of grains already, so he can blend it for me, so I don't have to do it. Because my dream is to open a bakery one day and be able to serve as many customers as possible. My bread, which I'm very proud of and I love. You can probably see on my social media. You see a lot of my passion there. And yes, I think bread is also giving me the opportunity to communicate who I am. It's a vehicle for me to get into people like such as you, and to share my experiences in life as well. So I think it's about time to almost open that beauty. I'm pretty excited to see what's going on in there as well.
What's the percentage steam you can set that to?
90% right now.
Sorry?
90% right now. 90. Yeah. The higher the better. So professional baking oven don't have any fans force. So they have just a button that you press. They connected a tube of water that will run through some elements. The water will go so fast they will create a steam pump. That's why we need to close the door straight away. I don't know if you've seen some sourdough videos of the bakers that press a button, the steam comes out, and there's actually steam. There's so much pressure, the steam opens the door, and the door is heavy. Yeah, so steam is very important because it keeps the crust moist. If the crust is not moist, as I said at the beginning, the bread will open in the weakest point. There's no dry yet. So if you have any questions, if you feel to ask, don't hesitate. And now we're gonna dust this one with the same mix that I used for the top. Put some here as well. The side that's exposed to the air will be the bottom side, and also the bottom side that will go into the proving basket. That's very important because now this one has more structure than the inside. You can still see a wonderful fermentation there. So this is probably one of the most interesting part. I've done 2 videos about showing how to shape sourdough. If you are a professional baker, you don't even worry about it because you only go by feel. You're trying to tense the bread as much as you can, moving towards the center. That's the main concept at the end. But if you are inexperienced and you want to learn, you basically grab the top bit and fold it to the center, or slightly above the center. And then you see you form these two corners. These need to go across each other, like that. And then the bottom will go on top. The less flour you have on the bench, the easier it actually is. I'm not used to have so much flour. And then you close it again, and you fold it. You tense it, and you leave it on the bench a little longer. This one to seal the seam on the bottom. Once the seam is sealed, in about 5 minutes, I will dunk it into the flour and put it into my proving basket for 2 hours minimum, and then you can bake it up to 24 hours. If your initial fermentation has not been long, let's say not longer than 5 hours, you can push this fermentation up to 36 hours. And what will happen, the characteristic of the bread will become more acidic. The lactic acid bacteria will prevail onto the fungi and will start become more sour. The crumb will be more lucid, less bubblier. It will become more like a gluten-free bread. Very plasticky. That's what will happen with longer fermentation. That's why when you have a loaf of bread that doesn't rise, it's usually for 2 reasons. It's either overproofed or underproofed. If it's overproofed, usually the crumb is very open, but very tiny bubbles. If it's underproofed, it's like a bread. It's completely dense. It's like plastic with a few bubbles here and there. And those bubbles are just you folding the bread, incorporating some air. There's not being any carbon dioxide being developed.
Determining what the proof level is there.
What I suggest to everybody is to double up. Double up every time. So this dough here, I wouldn't touch it until it doubles up inside. And then I know every time that it's going to grow. 100%. 100%. Of course, the flour needs to be a very good quality flour. We're talking about 12 grams of protein to begin with, at least. And you don't want to go lower than that.
You said you grabbed down one from the fridge, is that to, once it's finished preheating and you're not ready to bake it, you just put it in the fridge and leave it there?
Yes.
How long would you leave it in the fridge?
Up to 36 hours. As I said, depending on your initial fermentation,
Yeah.
they could be 5 hours or 10 hours or 7 hours. You will be able to ferment the loaf longer or shorter. I usually try to ferment it between, both ferment 5 to 6 hours and then at least 12 to 18 before I bake it again. But I pushed breads, especially whites, even 36 hours, but they become very sour. For me, unpleasantly sour. Some people really like sour bread, like sour, but I don't. So for example, I don't like flour. I don't like cold sourdough to be called sour. There's actually a wrong name to specify this natural fermentation. It should be called natural fermentation because sourdough doesn't have to be sour. Now we'll see if I messed up. Who knows? Sneak peek. So this is exactly what you want to achieve halfway. A beautiful open loaf, they're cracked. It's got a beautiful garnish on the top. I'm very surprised I didn't expect it to look so good.
For a start.
So of course, the fact that the heat doesn't affect the sugar because it's covered keeps the bread nice and white. Now what we're gonna do, I could actually be very sophisticated and put a probe in it. When the dough achieves on the core 92 degrees, it's cooked, and then we'll check it. Now that's it. Shut up, that's not true. So the temperature is dropping now. And this is wonderful. If we all have an oven like this in here, you're 100% sure the bread is cooked, no problem. You see it's still 66 degrees. This one will be so undercooked, you wouldn't be able to eat it or to cook it. It will be disgusting. So now let me put another timer just in case. Can you put a timer please? 20 minutes. I'll see if I'm right. Probably this one. Usually when we cook in the kitchen a steak or something that's thick, we calculate after 48 degrees, we calculate 1 minute. At 230 degrees, we no steam in that case. So we need to change the settings because we want it fully open. So this setting shows that I wanted the flue open. You can see the steam coming out, so the bread can be nice and crusty. So now, if I want a very thin crust, but cold of course, but not very thick, I will leave the steam all the way. And it will be nice and soft, like a sandwich loaf. If you want a nice crunchy loaf that will last you on the bench, on the countertop, for a week, just open the flue, leave the door, your oven slightly open, so all the steam goes out and the crust becomes nice and thick. The thicker the crust, the longer the shelf life of your loaf. This is why my nonna used to keep the bread on the table for about a week. It was that big, it will last for the whole family, 7 of us, on the bench for a week. The crust was so thick. And she had no teeth, so I was always asking myself, how do you eat the crust and eat the crumb? So I was eating the crumb and she was eating the crumb. It was a good deal for both of us.
Yeah, so I started using a thermometer to check my
Bread?
bread, because
Yeah.
I make a lot of different types.
Yes.
So if you're making consistent, it's okay, because you learn
Absolutely.
to try doing different things. And just a little probe thermometer
Yeah.
in through the base
Yeah.
to check it's 92, 95.
Yeah.
Make sure it's done.
Yes.
Because I used to have, looks like it's done,
Yeah.
poured out,
But it's
cooled,
undercooked.
and then it's not cooked.
Yeah.
But the probe really,
Oh.
it meant I always got,
As long as you're in the center,
yeah, it was always cooked.
yes, absolutely. And even though the probe, like when you bake a bread, it doesn't have to be like a cake. So if you put a probe in 92 degrees, your probe will come out dirty. You will say, oh, it's undercooked. No, be patient, be faithful. 92 degrees, it's perfectly cooked. Because you don't want to have a dry crumb. That's the worst thing in bread. That's what you find in the bakery, because they overcook the bread, and that's why it doesn't last long. And sourdough is not only a beautiful flavor, a wonderful healthy option, but it's also a preservative of the bread. Because of the lactic acid bacteria, there's less chances for the bread to develop mold, because there's such a high acidic environment. That's at least what they say when we study sourdough baking. That's one of the things that they teach you. It's because of the lactic acid bacteria on the crust, the bread will last longer. But who knows if that's true? I guess there will be some scientists that will have to prove that for us. So you can see this one is ripping. That's for 2 reasons. Probably not enough salt, because I didn't have a scale this morning, or it's over fermented. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some more flour, shape it in a different way. I'm just going to roll it. Seal the bottoms. These are produced in Australia from a Queensland company. It's called Sourdough Proving Basket, and they're $25 each. You buy one at home, it will last you forever. dishwasher safe. I'm not paid by them, so I just like to use them. And I have them in my microbakery. I always wanted them because the bamboo one or the rattan one tend to, it's very hard to clean, and if you don't clean them, they get moldy straight away, and the mold will penetrate the wood and you'll never get rid of it. So once you dunk them in the flour, you put it there. And at this point you will put this one in the fridge. Let it ferment until tomorrow, at least 2 hours, so the bread settles, because all the folds that we did now are still separate parts of dough, but we want that dough to become again one piece. So what you will do, you need to give it time for the water and the flour to combine again and unify in one unique mass. But if you want, because this dough is ready, we could do a focaccia, and we share some focaccia too. Same dough, same base, there's nothing else that needs to be done.
If you put that in the fridge, it's not going to grow as much.
Pardon?
If you put it in the fridge, it's not going to grow any more than what it currently is.
Not enough home fridge, not enough home fridge. If you have a professional environment where you have fans, it will become rock hard, even in 6 hours. Yeah.
You put it in the fridge for 12 or 24 hours.
Yes.
You don't cover it?
No. No. I never have issue.
So sorry, what happens in a professional fridge that makes it go hard?
The fan.
So this is something in moisture?
Yes.
Alright.
So what happens, because it's like a beating wind constantly. Every time the fans goes on, there's a cooling element that passes the cold air. The fan pushes the whole air, the cold air, so the wind will dry the outside of the bread until it goes inside. That's what happens. And the fridge doesn't. The home fridge has got a protection. It's got a fan, I think, inside at the back, but it doesn't move that much. Usually they're always very full as well, so there's not much circulation of air. It's only cold temperature, and actually that helps the bread to stabilize into a form. And I found so much benefits in doing that. I used to cover them, every single one of them, and they will always stick in the basket at the beginning. So then I saw this chef doing this one, I said, okay, I'll try it.
So I leave it in there for another couple of hours and let it grow a little bit more.
Yeah,
Then
you
I put it
can.
in the fridge.
You don't have to. If your dough is proven there already,
Yeah.
it's already done its first important bulk fermentation. Everything that you do after that will just deprive the dough from growing in the oven. So usually what we do as bakers in any bakery, it's growing your bread 75% on its own, and the last 25% needs to explode in the oven. Yeah. So every time we put a sandwich loaf, for example, we don't reach the top, we reach slightly underneath that, so you can fill it up. Otherwise it will lift the lid, and then it will have a little mushroom head. So how long did it pass?
We've done sentences.
13 left.
Pardon?
Only 7 minutes.
Left?
No, 13 left.
Oh, okay. So the bread is cooked, but I'm not happy with the color, as you can see. This one is still very pale, but once it's cold, it could be edible. And another trick is, if it sounds hollow, this still sounds very full, so I want to lose a bit more water. But at this point, if you like pale bread, as some people does, just you can take it out. I don't, so I'm gonna cook it longer. Okay. Let's go for focaccia.
When do you make your starter?
Pardon?
When do you make your starter?
When do we make your start? When do I make my starter?
When do you make these?
When?
Yes.
I can make it right now.
Okay, so you take a portion of each batch and
No,
it's not like that?
no. This is his own creature. Like, this is just flour and water
Yep.
that I don't do every day. I've done once, and I just kept feeding every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you feed it?
Pardon?
What do you feed it?
Flour and water.
Just
Flour and
any-
water.
any particular
Any flour.
ratio?
Well, usually I do, if this one is 100 grams,
Yeah.
I do 200 grams of flour and 200 grams of water.
Right, so mix it in.
Mix it together and put it into a little glass jar in the fridge and seal it.
Yes, you actually seal the glass jar in the fridge.
Yeah, it doesn't explode. Don't worry. It'll be alright. Maximum, it will lift the lid and pop out. It won't, the jar won't explode. You can use, the sealing lid, not the one that you screw on top.
Mm.
If you really feel like you would, that makes you feel safer, you can do absolutely that. But I had sourdough culture growing out of the ceiling, didn't even care. This thing can lift a house. This thing can lift a house. Like, trust me. Boxes like that, in plastic, full of dough, starter on the bottom. So we got 100 kilos of dough on top of a box like that. Started growing and coming out. Doesn't care. Gas doesn't care. If you make beer, you know how many bottles explode. Oh, you're okay. Lucky you. I got a friend of mine that makes bottles, and the other day I was having a beer with him, probably a couple of months ago, and at a certain point the temperature started rising. Pum, pum. So he lost about 6-7 years like that. It was very heartbreaking. So I know the feeling. There was a baking paper. So, if you will make a pizza, recipe for focaccia, you can use exactly the same dough. If you want to do brioche, of course you need to enrich your dough with eggs, sugar and butter. If you want to do fil bread, for example, at this point, before you put it into the pouring basket, you can add your fillings, you can add olives, sultanas, spices. Don't ever add any dry ingredients when you mix the dough, because you'll find spots into the dough that will be very dry, because the dry ingredients will deprive the dough from the water, because it wants to absorb it. So if you put seeds that haven't been soaked and they're not mixed evenly, they will stick in a place and suck all the water out, and that part of the dough will be so dry around it that you won't be able to move it. You cannot care, or you can care. I'm just telling you for you to know that if you want to put seeds, it's better to either soak them before for about 2-3 hours, and then you put them into the dough, or just spread them, roll it straight away and put it in a pouring basket once it's ready to go in these baskets. So anyway, if I want to do a focaccia, I hope you can see it properly. I like to dust it very well, and then I go on the sides, and then I go on the tops. Trying to even it. Then you dust over the flour. Usually a focaccia is a fattened bread. That's how we say it. That's how we actually call it in Italy. Fattened because we put a lot of oil on top. Usually we can put some rosemary, salt, cherry tomatoes. We put everything on it, actually. We can cut it in half and fill it with mascarpone, ham. It's just a wonderful bread that you can have.
So this one, you did this one's
This one.
this morning,
Yes.
right? So the proving bus doesn't need to stay in the proving basket for long.
No, it doesn't. If I want to do a focaccia,
Yep.
it doesn't need to stay in a brewing basket. I just wanted to share something else with you in this case. So I just showed you how I will take it to that level. Just imagine there's still bread in here, and we go into the brewing basket. To the fridge. That's much better. Andy, question for you. Do we have a serrated knife?
Yeah. It is important tool, I think.
So, now the trick to a wonderful focaccia is an emulsion of oil and water, not just oil. because the oils will fry the top, but we'll keep it moist. So 1 part of water, 2 parts of oil. You can see it's very watery, it's not creamy. Now you see, we'll emulsify and become like a sauce. If you have a whisk or a fork, you can use that. You can see how thicker there is. Oh, thank you. Then you pour this one on top, generously, and then you do the classic poiking. So the water and the oil will sink in these pipes. The water will stay on the bottom and will make the focaccia nice and succulent. If you don't put the water, it will become very dry. I'll spread it a bit more and let it cool for a bit. This is how I like it. So, completely different sound. And it's like a drum. That's what it is to sound like. I'll pass it to you into a towel so you can all smell it, because the smell that you have now will be completely different in half an hour. Don't bite onto it. You can smell sourness. You can pass it around. Beautiful caramelized sugars, wheat. There's a beautiful smell. Pardon? No, not allowed. Now we will need some butter. Some butter, some cheese. No. Oh, you have it?
I'm pretty sure. We're talking about bread, right?
Absolutely.
So you would slice it by the way?
No,
You let it sit for
yes.
an
At least
hour.
half an hour now. Yes, at least half an hour. If you're patient enough. Sometimes I'm not patient either.
Yeah, that's what it's at.
What's the secret? Cutting it straight.
There's no secret. There's no secret. You can't cut it. No, you can't cut it because it's still cooking. If you put your ear there, right now the crust is still actually moving. If you silence enough, you listen to the crust, it's actually cracking.
What's our total cooking time? Is there
Well, that one probably has been about 40 minutes, 25 plus 15. Yeah, 40, 45. Yeah, but depends on your oven.
We've been
Thank you so much. We need to extend. Yeah, so I do multiple different varieties. I like, so now a version that I was telling Andy before, I like to learn and practice and do different techniques. The last one that I did is create a scald with rye flour. So I boil a kettle of water and I put hot boiling water onto my rye flour to create like a porridge. And then I let it sit overnight until it cools down, and the day after I make the dough with it. Because I want to increase my rye quantity into my bread, but I don't want to lose the appealing look of a beautiful loaf. Because if you do 100% rye, your loaf will be so flat. Because there wouldn't be any capability of holding onto the gas. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I have a question, but cost to make that,
Cost to make that?
30 cents?
No. So my flour is quite expensive. I pay $1.75 a kilo. So that's probably $1.50. $1.50 compared to $8-9. So I sell it at $8 But of course, you don't pay only for the bread and the flour. You pay for 25 years of experience in fine dining, Michelin star restaurants, and the study and the books and the experience and the energy. So I think it's worth it. People are happy, I'm happy.
How big can you go?
How big?
This is a nice small loaf.
Yeah, that's 900 grams probably. The bigger the loaf, the lower the temperature, the longer the time. That's how you go it. Like in Italy, we have the pane di Altamura. They do 25 kilos loaf. They cook it for 2 hours. And it's only made with semolina. From the starter to the flour. 90% hydration, salt, and that's it. Fermented overnight. And the day after they make loaves that long, that big. There's some beautiful videos translated in English on YouTube if you want to look. Pane di Altamura, wonderful. That long, they put it on a paddle, chuck it in the oven. They do a natural few lines on top just to help it. Then it grows, but the color is black. Like not as black as black, but you know, a very dark brown, like these bits. That's how the whole crust looks like. But that's how my grandmother used to like the bread, for example.
When you slash that one, you do one deep cut.
Yes.
Then you play around with it.
That is
and
one.
a few other little slashes. That's just starting an over. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, but you were right. I did a big slash, and because I didn't reach the edge of the end of the loaf, I did another one,
Matters.
and the other one, because otherwise it wouldn't open like that. It will just, most likely, will just take, it will have
Mushroom.
a little oomph. Yeah, I wanted to, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
But let me try and see how much this one weighs. Because I've done this loaf behind, so I didn't weigh any ingredients because I didn't have a scale here. That's 700 grams. So it probably, they usually lose 15%, let's see. So it probably would have been 775 total dough, 800 max. So there is a rule in baking that the bread, of course, has to lose maximum 25% of hydration while baking. That's it. So that's the maximum weight loss that we have into a baking product that doesn't have fat or eggs. In that case, it will change. It will be much lower, like 10%, 15%, because fat components don't evaporate as much as water. And I want to show you this one now. So this has probably been half an hour since we haven't touched this. And I'll pass it around to see how coarse that looks, and then once I fold it, I'll show you again. Don't get dirty because there's some flour on the bottom.
So can you just do a recap?
Absolutely.
When you said hello, welcome.
You can watch a video.
No. I missed when you started with the starter.
Yes.
And then you added and mixed.
I mix all the ingredients together.
You throw
There's
it
no
in.
escalation.
Yeah.
All ingredients are together.
So at the point you made, you're not putting any other additives like olives or anything like that?
No olive oil. Olive oil will make your bread much less crustier. So there's one rule. Fat is, you got into
We're
fat.
getting the other session, but this
No
was
worries.
excellent. And I really enjoyed
Thank
it.
you so much.
No,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I was saying, any fat inside the dough will make your dough softer and moister. Any fat outside the dough will make your dough crustier and crunchier. And for only one concept. Water, max temperature is 100 degrees and then evaporates. Fat can reach 180, 200, so it will fry the outside. That's why focaccia is crunchy. That's why a donut is crunchy on the outside, it's soft in the middle. That's why a cepola or something, the Italian fried. Well, that's why fried stuff is crunchy, because we fry so high temperature and the sugars into the flour caramelizes. It's like you do a caramel. What happens when you do a caramel? It becomes hard if you let it set. And that's exactly what happens into the flour, in any ingredients that are sugar. But if I wasn't a chef, I probably wouldn't be able to explain this way to you, because I didn't know at what temperature sugar will caramelize. Now this is something that you can implement also in your beer making, for example. I have never had made beer. I bloody enjoy it. So I would definitely appreciate a wonderful beer. But I can't talk about beer making because I have no idea. I know a bit about fermentation. I made my own cheese, made my own kombucha, made my own meat, made my own sourdough, but that's where I'm limited. But for example, one thing that I want to say is I created my latest sourdough starter using the wine fermentation method. I said, why do wine makers don't do anything to the grapes once they press them? They just stir them and keep it on the same temperature. they will change slightly, but 0.1 degrees. I was working in a winery before I set up these master classes. Mitola in McLaren Vale, they produce beautiful red wines, and I think only one white wine. And we went to the Barossa Valley where they produced the wine, and the winemaker was telling us that their variation of 0.2 or 0.1, sorry, 0.01, 0.02 will completely change the wine profile, which is nothing, literally nothing. So what they do, they press the grapes, leave the skin, some of them take them off, and they just stir it until the amount of alcohol that they want to have into the wine, it's ready, achieve the level that they want. So I put that method of just stirring flour and water into my sourdough culture making, and that's what I started teaching. Just mix sourdough, just mix flour and water, same quantity, until it becomes a porridgey or pancake mixture, and then every so often stir it, and wait 2-3 days until you see some sort of bubbles. Once you see some sort of bubbles, the fermentation is started, and you can start feeding. But there's so many methods on the internet that teach you feed it after 1 day straight away. Now you're just slowing the process because nothing has developed yet. That will make it much slower. So I adopted the method, and it was just a game changer. It made me be able to make this one in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days during winter, cold temperatures. Like big results for me. Let me get some water and fold that. So why do I use so much water? You're welcome. Thank you so much. I use water because it's like a no sticky hand. You don't have to use oil because I don't like to add oil, but water is fine. I can increase the aggression of the dough. But you can see now. This one is not ready yet. But you can see the gluten structure develop. Now this one becomes smoother and smoother and smoother and smoother. If you want to invest in something, buy this one. $2. Game changer. Cleans the bowl, mix the dough, scrapes it. The best money I ever spent. I got probably 15 of it. So now you can pass this one out. And we haven't done much. I've touched this dough 3 times. And look how glossy and shiny that is now. I can feel by touch that the hydration can increase, so I can add more water to it. But I'm gonna take that one home and see. Oh, if anybody wants it, you can take it because I'm not gonna do anything with it. I'm gonna put this one in the oven now. So some salt. If I add some herbs, I will put some herbs. But trick, if you have herbs, mix them into the brine that we made. Because what happens, the water protects them from burning. Another chef's trick. So you can see this one now, it's nice and soggy, there's water and it's been absorbed. It's ready to go in the oven. We cook it very quickly, so it stays super crunchy but very soft in the middle. No, no. You could if you want, but then you wouldn't see any. So what happens if you let it double everything in size? This one is already fermented today. And it's got enough power for me to slightly grow. It doesn't, now it's only my power. How I'm gonna bake it, how long I'm gonna bake it, to give you the best product that I can. For example, if you do a pizza, it takes in 90 seconds at 400 degrees. It can be crunchy, it can be soggy, it can be soft, depends on how the bacon bakes. The same thing with the focaccia. If you want to double in size, you can, but the bubbles that you will find into the dough will be all the same. The longer is the fermentation in place, in a sealed container, the more the fermentation is naturally stable across.
So you're going into a dry oven with steam?
No, steam. Just for a few minutes. Just for 5 minutes and then I'm gonna lower it down. bread and butter. So, let me say also, if when you go home and you have a starter now, if you're not ready to bake, put it in the fridge. It will last in there for months. Nothing will happen to it because it's cryovac, it's sealed. Instead, if you want to bake tomorrow, go home, mix it with 200 grams of flour, 200 grams of water, leave it on the bench. Tomorrow morning, maybe make the dough. If you're not too drunk, or how do you say? After the hangover, and make the dough straight away. So that one would have fermented overnight tonight. Tomorrow you can make the dough. You'll see the difference with this starter compared to the one that you had maybe. If you want to mix rye, if you want to mix malt, be free to do whatever you want. It's yours now. So there's no reason why you cannot personalize it. But feed your starter always 1 part of culture, 2 parts of water, 2 parts of flour. There's also other starters, stiff starter, but I wouldn't go deep onto that because that's a different, it's the same animal, but completely different feeding and procedure or conservation. So yeah, it will be just confusing for you today. Yeah. You can. Yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah, you can do. You can use the bullish. You can use also for this method too. Instead of using yeast, use sourdough culture, and it will work exactly the same way. But because the texture of this sourdough culture is already liquid, it's already like you using the bullish. So if the recipe says that you want to use 200 grams of bullish, just use 200 grams of 100% sourdough culture. Pardon?
To boost your hydration.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually polished or bigger, a method that simulate the flavor of sourdough. That's why they get used to it. So polish is more used like in doughs like ciabatta, baguettes. Bigger is more used in breads, the one that you want to take more to the flavor of sourdough bread. But I don't believe much in calling it sourdough bread because you can make panettone, for example, with sourdough culture. And that's not sour. That's a sweet bread. You can make pizza, you can make focaccia. It's just the way that you start working with it, feeding it or washing it. The often you feed it, the less sour it is. Also, the less flour you put into your starter, the more sour it is. So your feeding changes everything. That's very important that you keep that in mind.
So if I was making 1 loaf a week, how many times would you feed your starter?
The one that I gave you?
Yeah.
So if you want to make a loaf like that one, you only need 100 grams of flour.
Yeah.
So if you put in there 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water, you will definitely have enough for next time.
Yeah.
Because you always have a...
You don't do that once a week, wouldn't you do this daily?
Exactly.
You're making it daily.
Yeah. But if you want to make...
in the fridge?
Yes. So what I do, I feed the starter, grows, make the bread dough, put the starter in the fridge.
Put it out next time.
Yes. Do the
Less
same.
than enough to refrigerate.
You don't have to.
No, you don't have
Just feed it straight away. I use warm water to activate the starter.
So it's
Quicker.
not temperature sensitive. You don't-
Temperature is everything. Like if you make beer, you know, everything changes compared to your temperature. So during winter, if I want this one to go faster, I make a water bath underneath the bowl, covered, so I can raise the temperature of the environment. Or I can use hot water, warm water. It's no, don't work because it will be too quickly. It's always very good to use very cold water to make doughs because you want everything to start slow. And it's better for your dough. You can develop the gluten much slower. If you use hot water, your gluten will develop much faster. But it will break faster too.
I use an esky with a light in it with a...
So you're using that as a proving template.
Proving template. It's really easy. Just polystyrene with your normal temperature gauge at 26 degrees and just let it go.
That's
Works
wonderful.
beautifully in winter.
That's one.
You know, it's the styrofoam boxes for the people that heat mats. It's all there.
No, I think it's time to eat. If you have flour on the bench, feed your starter. It will be a waste to fry. So that's what I usually will do. That's it. Let me get a chopping board and then I cut the bread. Here we go. So this is your bread. You see what happens when the bread is still too hot? You'll stick to your knife and it will look like it's undercooked, but it's actually perfectly cooked. We checked with the pro, so I'm no suitable for liability now. But this is actually gorgeous.
What was your resting time on that?
On the rack,
Yeah.
probably about 20 minutes. It's been out, but not enough as you can see.
That's the problem in my house, they can't wait.
I think it's the problem in every house.
Yeah.
Let me put it. Please, come here. Start.
Great being on here.
And that's the beauty of sourdough. It's moist, it's crunchy, it's flavorful. There's a beautiful body into it.
Oh, yum.
Sorry, it's too hot.
Yeah. Show me one person's complaining.
Yeah, it's too hot. Now some charcuterie, some prosciutto, salame, and I'll take you to Italy for a second.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That's it. It's all there.
Beautiful.
Trying to get all the information.
So what percentage hydration do you reckon?
This one?
Yeah.
I have no clue because I didn't weight it. But I would say, by the look of it, at least 85.
Yeah.
At least 85.
That's right, it's salt.
Yes, absolutely. It's a pillow.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Good thinking.
That's thinking.
It's delicious, man.
Who needs a knife? Exactly. And bread, there's nothing more homey than the smell of bread. Like,
Oh yeah.
nothing takes you back home for more than that. So like, no, it's not bad for a second. That's terrible. Look at it.
Wow.
So you said because flour again, is this just white flour?
Yes, that's just way. Yes, katana, it's called. There's a bakery that uses the flour in Melbourne. I don't know the name.
White flour.
Yeah, you can buy it on their website.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. The color of that flour.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's not white. It's a gray. So I packed my flour. I started and I shipped it to a friend of mine, a cafe in Marvin.
Oh, yeah.
Marvin Road, so Florida.
Yeah.
And yesterday, my partner went and picked it up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because it was late, my flight was late.
Yeah.
3 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes late.
Right.
So I had to be in Adelaide, Melbourne 8:30, organize all the pickups for today to make the dough and everything. And I arrived in Melbourne at 11:05.
Where did it come from?
Adelaide. I said I could have driven there.
I want to say too, for all the brewers, put your nose, I haven't buttered this one, put your nose into it and really smell it, and it smells like a mash tun.
Yeah, it totally does.
It smells like a
Yeah,
dough in or something.
Yeah.
Liquid bread.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely.
Wait, but that's the aroma.
What is it?
We call it the mash in beer brewing, where we mix the grains with water
Okay.
initially.
Even the flavour of the crust.
Yeah.
It's got the same flavour as a fresh mash.
I love it. We should do a bread degustation. We should organize maybe a series of different breads cooked at different temperature, with different grains, different times of fermentation.
Yeah.
Well,
Different starters.
I've spent mash, you can just throw it into there as well. That crust is good. Yeah, anytime with bread.
I mean, that's
I must admit,
absolutely.
I haven't had a lot of success with spent mash. Not getting much out
No,
of
I did enough bread.
She's sick of it.
No.
She gets once a
Red's like a lie.
She breaks your heart in these tortillas.
She's the lucky one. She gets to have it fresh.
Because of the leftovers.
Yeah. You know, do some small rolls. Like portion. I cut them and roll them, and then I bake them. So I bought this beautiful sourdough oven. That's fried. Do you need the oven, sir?
Not now.
I've turned that off.
Wow.
See, it's still growing. Still growing a bit. Of course, if you give it more time, but it will grow a little more. But you had to have a vessel that will be more contained. I didn't have a big vessel, so a smaller vessel.
Do you cook in a wood oven? Would you do-
No. Oh, you could,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But you never cook with fire. You cook with the heat that's left in the bricks.
Yeah, okay.
Usually, you bake bread
At the end?
at the end when the temperature is right.
Yeah.
No one is right. No one is under half.
You do your pizzas first and then.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when it's usually 280, 290, that's when you start baking your bread.
Yeah.
Splash some water,
Yeah.
not on the bricks, maybe on a piece of steel or metal.
Yeah.
So you
Struggle.
Yes. But it's better to have a vessel so you don't break your bricks.
Yeah.
Or smarter is boiling water,
Yeah.
so you don't break your bricks when it splashes everywhere.
Yeah.
Water is the enemy of refractory bricks.
Yeah.
Totally terrible. No, I bought this oven from the Chandley family in UK. It's only for professional baking, but it's for home micro bakery, and it's wonderful. I made so many things in there already: 2 months, croissant, pizza, like round sourdough. It's got a little hole to pour water for steam injection creation. Game changer. I used to bake 60 loaves in 2 days in 4 baking vessels. So I was going nuts. I said, no, this one needs to be changed because I can't do it anymore. I don't want to lose my passion for baking because of the business. So.
Yeah.
Too late.
Oh, come on.
Never too late.
Don't be shy.
What do you reckon? Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Be careful, it's very hot.
Taste it, Kev.
So this is the dough from this morning.
Yes, so we'll notice some difference.
That's okay.
Yeah.
For me, I tried, I
Came in
failed.
late, did he put olive oil?
I just,
You won't fail
I
again.
got confused with the timing.
It's not timing. Forget timing. Forget timing. Remember size. Double, shave, fridge. Wait at least 2 hours and then you can bake. I suggest better 12. So the bread sits a bit and then you bake it. But the most important thing is once you nail the fermentation, is the baking. You need to cover your bread instead of just leaving there. Otherwise it won't grow like that one that's not there. So you see what I mean? You have different sizes, bubbles, because he hasn't uniformly proven. Exactly. So that's the difference. That's exactly when you see a beautiful open crumb pizza, for example, is because the pizza maker has been able to move the air to the sides, and that's when they have those uneven bubbles in it.
That doesn't need any addition to it.
No, olive oil. Good olive oil makes everything good. My nonna used to say, everything fries is delicious.